Привет! It's Elina from Russian Speaking Club, and today we're gonna talk about something that everyone loves to do on their weekend or in the evening after work. It's watching movies. I've never singled out my favorite movie because I love many genres, movies of different countries, different actors, but what never gets old and what movies I can watch again and again and again are Soviet movies. They are iconic in Russia. Our parents always watch it, and it's like a tradition for Russians to watch Soviet movies after celebrating the New Year. We have like a marathon of watching Soviet movies straight for a week and watching them all day long. They have one of the best humor, and phrases and some quotes from these movies are so embedded in the Russian language that sometimes we forget that these phrases are from the movies and we use them all the time. So let's discuss 10 top Soviet movies and famous phrases from them. By the way, join our Russian speaking club if you want to understand the very core essence in the Russian language and to be able to understand slang, modern phrases, jokes, and not only the word-by-word translation. And on our club we focus on practice, so you will be able to start speaking from any level and to practice in a community of like-minded people, which is a lot of fun. So see you there. There are lots of really good Soviet movies, okay guys? And today we're gonna discuss only 10. But these 10, they're so iconic, and I promise you will not regret if you watch them, and you will be addicted to them. So let's start from the first iconic movie. It's named Brillianteva Ruka. It means a diamond arm. It's a story which talks about smugglers who wanted to transport diamonds on a ship in an orthopedic cast of a courier. But they don't know how the courier looks like, and they mistook Soviet tourist Semyon Semyonovich Gorbunkov for a courier against the one who had to transport the diamonds. And the plot revolves around persistent but unsuccessful attempts by the attackers to recover the diamonds hidden in this orthopedic cast. The most popular phrase from this movie is «Наши люди в булочную на такси не ездят».
Спокойной ночи.
Спокойной ночи, Семен Семенович.
Да.
Наши люди в булочную на такси не ездят.
And you need to know the context, when this was happening to understand why they say that. So it was during the Soviet Union. So this phrase is about the communist values, that everyone should be on an equal footing, and that taking a short taxi ride to buy a bread is a too luxurious thing. So, наши люди в булочную на такси не ездят. Have you ever heard of the Russian Tsar Ivan the Terrible? Or maybe you've ever dreamt about being born in another century, some historical era. Sometimes I imagine myself in these dresses at the balls. But the main character of the movie, Ivan Vasilyevich меняет профессию, doesn't need to dream. The film tells about the engineer-inventor Shurik, who created a time machine that opens the doors to the 16th century in the time of Ivan Vasilyevich the Terrible, as a result of which the Tsar finds himself in Soviet Moscow in the chambers of the Tsar. At one of the banquets, Ivan Vasilyevich begins to behave inappropriately. At the end, he falls asleep on the throne, and before saying the phrase with a slurred tongue, «Я требую продолжения банкета», which Russians now also use in their life when they want to say that they don't want something to stop. «Я требую продолжения банкета». The next movie, also super iconic, is «Кавказская пленница» или «Новые приключения Шурика», «Caucasian Captive» or «The New Adventures of Shurik». The plot is based on the adventures of the folklore collector Shurik, who, while in a southern city, finds himself involved in the story of the abduction of the girl Nina. Nina is invited to the opening of the new palace and described in these words: «Студентка, комсомолка, спортсменка. Наконец, она просто красавица».
Это студентка, комсомолка, спортсменка. Наконец, она просто красавица.
And this phrase is so famous that usually in our life, and even now when we don't have the komsomol, it's like a community or communist party, we don't have all these Soviet things, but still up to now we use this phrase when we want to say that some woman or a girl is doing really well, like she's beautiful, she's smart, and she is an athlete. Like when you want to say that some girl is doing a really great job, you say студентка, комсомолка, спортсменка, красавица. By the way, if you ever say that to some Russian girl or a woman, she will be really surprised, because only Russians know these kind of phrases which are so unique in our language. What do you guys say when you don't like some dish or some food is, honestly saying, disgusting? Russians would usually say «Какая гадость, это ваша заливная рыба».
Какая гадость, это ваша заливная рыба.
This phrase is also iconic because it comes from the most popular movie that every Russian watch every December 31st, because it's our tradition to watch this movie every single year for the New Year's. It's The Irony of Fate, Ирония судьбы или С легким паром. The plot revolves around Zhenya Lukashin, and there is a tradition also for Russians to go to banya, which is a Russian sauna, kind of, before we meet the New Year's. And he goes to banya with his friends, they get really drunk, and then they remember that one of them had to go to St. Petersburg, but they don't remember who. And accidentally they send the wrong person, which is Zhenya Lukashin, to St. Petersburg from Moscow. And all the communist buildings look the same in all the cities of Russia, and also we have the same names of streets. And he is drunk, he didn't realize that he was in St. Petersburg and not in Moscow, and in St. Petersburg he goes to his address, which is actually another address, and gets inside the apartment. Everything looks exactly the same because it's this communist building. He falls asleep, and then the girl comes to her apartment and finds a stranger, a drunk stranger, and then all these love story, adventures, humor, everything begins to revolve around this situation. So if it's the New Year's Eve, I definitely recommend to watch this movie. It's full of humor and it's just a very warming and kind story. The next Soviet film is named Москва слезам не верит. Moscow does not believe in tears. For the main character Lyudmila, Moscow seems like a lottery which you need to win, and she dreams of finding a man who lives in Moscow and to move in with him. And then she meets Sergei Gurin, who is a rising hockey star. One of the most famous phrases from this movie is «Все в Москву лезут, как будто она резиновая». Everyone goes to Moscow as if it's made of rubber.
Да, прямо все в Москву лезут, будто она резиновая.
Which means like everyone from Russia rushes to Moscow for opportunities to make money, to start a new life. Yeah, it's like a city of opportunities. Many people want to move there. And this phrase is actual even nowadays because so many people move to Moscow as if this city can stretch and it grows and grows. And still more and more people go to Moscow. By the way, have you ever been there? Let me know in the comments. Свадьба в Малиновке. Wedding in Malinovka is another Soviet movie. The action takes place in the village Malinovka during the civil war with the constantly changing government. The hardships of the war don't interfere with the love of the shepherd Andreika and Yarenka, who is the daughter of a revolutionary exiled to Siberia under the Tsar. And one of the characters in this movie says, «Мне бы такую работу, где поменьше работы». I would like to have such job, where there is less work.
Помощником не могу. Мне бы такой работы, чтобы поменьше работы. Начальником могу.
Мне бы тоже такую работу. The next movie, Вокзал на двоих, Station for Two. The action takes place in a town Zastupinsk, where the main character Platon Rябinin, during a stop due to a conflict with the waitress of the station restaurant Vera, misses his train on which he had to travel to his father in town Griboyedov. And he needs to spend next 2 days here. In one of the scenes he says, «В сущности, если вдуматься, вся наша жизнь – зал ожидания». If we think about it, all our life means waiting for something to happen.
А сами куда денетесь?
Останусь здесь. Ведь в сущности, если вдуматься, вся наша жизнь – зал ожидания.
It's like a station where we wait for these trains and buses. The next very iconic and famous movie – Операция И или другие приключения Шурика. Operation И and other adventures of Shurik, the famous character which you can find in many movies. Операция И. Yeah, guys, this is your favorite letter and the sound. Yeah, I guess there is no alternative of the sound И in English. People say that in order to say that, you need to punch yourself in the stomach. It's like yeah, so this movie is Операция И. It's filmed by a very famous movie maker, Soviet movie maker, Leonid Gaidai. Watch his movies, it's totally worth it. So this movie consists of stories in which you can see how the main character Shurik builds houses and conducts educational work, passes an exam, meets a beautiful girl, and of course he's fighting with the robbers of socialist property. And the famous phrase from this movie is «Надо, Федя, надо».
Я больше не буду.
Нет. Надо, Федя. Надо.
This is how Shurik answers to Fedya in one of the scenes. And even now, like up to days, if you ask someone to do something that he doesn't want, but you know that he needs to do that because it will be good for him, like, or just to do something that you need to do, but you like don't want, you say, «Надо, Федя». Nada. It's like you need to do this, Fedya. And even though this is a name, Fedya, we can say it to any person with like any name, and even to girls when you ask them to do something. Надо, Fedya. Nada. The next movie is Джентльмены удачи. Gentlemen of Fortune. The plot tells about how in Central Asia 3 criminals steal the golden helmet of Alexander the Great from the excavation site of an archaeological expedition. Having reported to the police in Moscow, the head of the expedition, Professor Maltsev, accidentally bumps into a man on a bus who looks exactly like the leader of criminals, a bandit named Dosant. This is where the adventure begins. The famous phrase, which every Russian knows from this movie, is «Кушать подано, садитесь жрать, пожалуйста».
Кушать подано, садитесь жрать, пожалуйста.
So, жрать means to eat, but in a very rude way, like super rude way. You don't say that to people. It's like жри, it means like eat this. It's like throwing food to the pigs. I don't know, it's like жрать. But here it's used in a very comical way because he says кушать подано, which sounds very aristocratic kind of. So it's like кушать подано and then садитесь жрать, пожалуйста. So it's a very comic phrase. And the last movie in our list is named Mimina. The plot is based on the story of Georgian pilot Valiko Mizandari, who after 8 years of working on a helicopter serving the needs of residents of mountain villages, decides to switch to big aviation. Mimina came to Moscow to get a job in the big aviation, and he turned to France with a request for a hotel room. By the way, in the USSR, it wasn't easy to get a hotel room in Moscow. So when the owner of the apartment offered Mimina to sit down, he refused out of modesty, answering «Спасибо, я пешком постою».
Садитесь, пожалуйста.
Спасибо, я пешком постою.
Which sounds also kind of comical, and it's a tautology, which he says, I will stand here on my foot. Well guys, that's all for today. When you watch one of these movies that I recommended, come back to this video and please write your review, your impressions, and maybe some other interesting phrases that you noticed in the movie. Just come back to this video, let others know about your impressions, and if you've already watched some of these movies or other Soviet movies, let us know in the comments which ones are your favorite, or maybe you would like me to make a review of some other movies and phrases from there. Anyway, let me know if you like this video, if you'd like to see more videos like that, and thank you for watching. Спасибо за просмотр. Всем пока-пока.